Good day, everyone. My name's Emmy. I moved to Australia over 2 years ago for my semester abroad, and I'm still here. Over the last semester, I wrote my thesis about working holiday urbanism in Australia that I'm going to present to you today. For those who haven't been to Australia, it is the smallest of the 7 continents, but the world's largest island. In 1788, British colonization began, with the first penal colonies arriving in Botany Bay, today Sydney. The genocide against the Aborigines led to a near extinction of the native population. The surviving Aborigines were enslaved to help in agriculture. Till today, rural Australia is sparsely populated. The only relationship with the land is of an extractive nature, such as mining and cattle farming. So being a country founded by migrants, shouldn't that be reflected in Australia's visa policy? Australia, now inhabited by 24 million people and 45 million kangaroos, is a favorite travel destination of young Germans due to its vast nature and beautiful wildlife. The most used visa hereby is the Working Holiday visa that was introduced in the 70s for a cultural exchange, but in reality works as a formula to attract young and healthy workers from a curated selection of countries to help with regional worker shortages. The visa allows them to stay for 1 year in Australia in a combined regime of work and holidays. The formula has facilitated a stable flow of unstable workforce to the industries of hospitality and tourism in metropolitan areas and farming industries in regional Australia. Their impact on the economy is so important that any attempt from previous governments to reduce the flow of foreign labor to the Australian market has faced the straight opposition of farmer lobbies. However, working holiday makers face multiple forms of precariousness during their stay. Australia must recognize the value of its working holiday citizens beyond their productive input and celebrate their contribution to a desirable National Multicultural Project. The working holiday urbanism needs to be understood as a so far invisible city model with a crucial role within the Australian community. It is an urban structure defined by an unstable, transitional, multi-scale and trans-territorial urban fabric, an archipelago that connects suburbs, productive infrastructures, and domestic systems located across the continent by a clear sequence of parameters. The first one is a form of urban membership, holding a working holiday visa number. Next, members of the working holiday urbanism participate in particular industries, starring hospitality, seasonal farming, and tourism. Many of them inhabit shared hostel rooms, shared houses or apartments, and in many cases overpopulated rooms under illegal forms of rental. However, given the juxtaposition of working and holiday, many working holiday makers spend seasons traveling around the country in mobile domestic units like vans, camper vans, or car and tent combos. Sydney is the backpackers' capital. Each working holiday maker tends to stay for an average of 87 days or more. Backpackers nowadays prefer a new form of residential tourism, living and working in one place for extended stays in search for an authentic Australian experience rather than constantly moving. The rising demand for longer stays places pressure on Sydney's already overpriced real estate market. The demand for illegal premises has been intensified by backpackers. Apart from tourist destinations, working holidaymakers mainly travel to remote areas in order to obtain a second-year visa through absolving 88 days of specified work. Rural Australia simply has more work than workers. The agriculture industry heavily relies on backpackers as the primary labor source for critical jobs during harvesting season. Fruit picking forms the most popular sector. Following advertisements of farmers or labor hire companies online, they travel to rural areas, stay on campsites and working hostels or on farms. Isolated farms build an ideal ground for exploitation. Farmers rely on seasonal workers, but backpackers that need a job for their visa are the vulnerable actors in the system. There are uncountable reports about working holidaymakers being abused. My design is a multi-scale attempt to imagine and propose alternative scenarios that celebrate the rich input of working holidaymakers to regional Australia and provide them with a strong sense of autonomy. My working holiday city is an archipelago of spatial precincts. Every precinct is an autonomous architectural fortress, a monument that represents the working holiday makers. Far from the apparent attempt for independence, each precinct is a spatial defense of threatened cultural vibrancy and forms of diversity. Every precinct acts as a parallel state within the state and an island within the working holiday archipelago. The hypothesis behind this architectural and territorial operation is that if managed with the proper propagandic strategy, the archipelago will congregate working holiday members as well as cultural events and additional economies to infra-populated regions to Australia. My exemplaric working holiday precinct is placed in Murray, located in the northwest of New South Wales. It is one of the biggest towns of the so-called outback. The town used to be one of the biggest cattle stations in Australia. Nowadays, its economic strength is linked to cotton, cattle farming, and picker net industry. Together with an important flow of outback explorers that stop in town to rest from tough touristic journeys across the desert and enjoy its artesian hot springs. Given its strong farming industry, Murray is a natural attractor of working holiday makers. However, their presence in town isn't easily detected. The low-density urbanism in the city and the distance to some farms leads to working holiday makers staying in overpriced and isolated farm accommodations. The exemplaric precinct is located in the former place of Murray's Oval, an extensive land area used for local farmer fairs and popular events. The first intention is the insertion of an oval fortress, a monumental inhabited wall that surrounds the events precinct and hosts private domestic programs. Its pixelated facade consists of concrete panels on the north side to protect from radiation, and translucent polycarbonate panels to illuminate the interior in the south. Inside the loop, shared domestic activities take place. The precinct is at the same time a house for 2,000 working holiday makers, a multifunctional public infrastructure, and an events precinct. Housing 18 to 30-year-old working holiday makers from 58 different countries, cultural systems, beliefs, and worldviews, the accommodations reflect this diversity through a typology of rooms and apartments. The flat chairs, cave-like pods, are individually sized and serve the privacy needs of each. The space in between the pods will soon be inhabited. These semi-public, semi-private spaces leave room for storage, informal reunions between room neighbors, and gardening, and offer new forms of domesticity. The pods itself consist of polycarbonate multi-walls and opaque soundproof curtains for privacy. Cork flooring is used in the private spaces. The communal areas consist of light concrete floors, and the service areas are made of perforated steel. Whereas the outer ring hosts private activities like sleeping, sexual encounters, religious rituals, and hygiene within a labyrinth of pods, the inner scaffold platforms host multiple forms of shared domestic spaces. Its shape contrasts between narrow passages and generous open spaces on each level, and is defined by a division in 8 houses that host different communal purposes, such as preparing food, doing sports, creating art, playing music. Infrastructural kitchens and nightclub-sized living rooms articulate the shared space with a strategic placement of rescaled and reprogrammed furniture divisions. The continuous light steel structure circulates from the ground floor to the roof, articulating a vibrant journey through collective spaces that can be used for relaxation, news exchange, barbecues, lectures, concerts, exercising, and general assemblies. The central agora serves as an events precinct for the town and a festival ground for the working holiday makers. Creating their rituals, the community hosts a quarterly festival to welcome new arrivals and to celebrate the beginning of the new harvesting seasons. Murray's Oval Precinct is a monument, an act of refusal, an appropriation of Aboriginal and farmers' land by a new form of settlers. However, the preservation of previous public programs forces a space of encounter between the multiple forms of otherness the Australian so-called outback consists of. The final agenda is to give visibility to the working holiday makers, through concentrating them in a high-density precinct, intentionally placed in a dominant position, equipped with high-quality spaces. Murray's Working Holiday Fortress is a permanent festival that ultimately celebrates Australian multiculturalism.